Oh my god. You're so awesome, Lawrence Lim.
It's Lawrence Lim with the W.
A Scottish man was at a baseball game. It was the first time he had ever seen the sport, so he sat quietly. The first batter approached the plate, took a few swings, and then hit a double. Everyone was on their feet screaming, "Run, run." This happened 2 more times, with a single and a triple. The Scottish man was now excited and ready to get into the game. The next batter came up and 4 balls went by. The umpire called walk and the batter started on a slow trot to first. The Scotsman, extremely excited now, stood up and screamed, "Run, ye bastard, run." Everyone around him started laughing, so the Scotsman, extremely embarrassed, sat back down. The fan sitting next to the Scotsman noticed his embarrassment, so he leaned over and explained, "He can't run because he got 4 balls." The Scotsman immediately stood up and screamed, "Walk with pride, lad. Walk with pride."
So this 80-year-old couple decided to go to the doctor because they was having trouble with their memory. They couldn't remember nothing anymore. So they got to the doctor. He did a few tests and everything. He said, listen, when it comes to your physical, you're in great health. He said, now as far as your memory, that comes with age. So I just suggest that everything you write down. Write down everything and you won't forget nothing. They said, okay. So later on that night at the house, the husband got up in the middle of the night to go to the kitchen. He asked his wife, do you want anything? She said, yeah, bring me a bowl of vanilla ice cream. He said, okay. He turned around to get ready to leave. She said, you don't need to write that down? He said, no, you want a bowl of vanilla ice cream. She said, okay. She said, hey, could you put some whipped cream and a cherry on top? He said, yeah, I got you. She said, you don't need to write that down? He said, no, you want a bowl of vanilla ice cream with some whipped cream and a cherry on top. She said, okay. He left. A few minutes later, he came back with a plate of bacon, eggs, and grits. She looked down there and she said, wow, told you should have wrote it down. You forgot the toast.
Three couples went to see a minister to find out how to become members of the church. The first couple was retired, the second couple was middle-aged, and the third couple had just gotten married. Well, the minister said they'd have to go without sex for 2 weeks and then come back and say how it went. 2 weeks went by and the couples returned to the minister. The retired couple said it was no problem at all. The middle-aged couple said it was tough the first week, but after that it was no problem. The newlyweds said it was fine until a wife dropped a can of paint. "A can of paint?" exclaimed the minister. "Yeah," said the newlywed man. "She dropped the can, and when she went to bend over to pick it up, lust just took over. I had to have her right there, so I lifted up her skirt and, well," the minister stuck out his hand and told the man he could say no more. He said he was sorry, but they weren't welcome at the church. He said, "That's okay. We're not welcome at the hardware store anymore either." Bill worked in a pickle factory. He'd been employed there for a number of years. He came home one day to confess to his wife that he had a terrible compulsion. He had an urge to stick his penis into the pickle slicer. His wife suggested that he should go to a sex therapist to talk about it, but Bill said that he'd be too embarrassed. He vowed to overcome the compulsion on his own. One day, a few weeks later, Bill came home absolutely ashen. His wife could see that something was seriously wrong. "What's wrong, Bill?" "Well, do you remember how I told you the tremendous urge I had to put my penis in the pickle slicer?" "Oh, Bill, you didn't," she said. "Yes, I did." "My God, Bill, what happened?" "Well, I got fired." "No, Bill, I mean, what happened with the pickle slicer?" "Oh, she got fired too." "Why did I get divorced?" "Well, last week was my birthday. My wife didn't wish me a happy birthday. My parents forgot. So did my kids. I went to work. Even my colleagues didn't wish me a happy birthday. As I entered my office, my secretary said, 'Happy birthday, boss.' Well, I felt special. She asked me out for lunch, and after lunch she invited me to her apartment. Well, we went there, and she said, 'Do you mind if I go in the bedroom for a minute?' 'Okay,' I said. Well, she came out 5 minutes later with a birthday cake. My wife, my parents, my kids, my friends, my colleagues, all yelling, 'Surprise!' Well, I was waiting on the sofa, naked. A man was driving down the road with his monkey in the back of the van. He sees a hitchhiker and picks him up. They were going down the road talking when the monkey came flying up front and unzipped the driver's pants and just goes to town on him. The man slaps the monkey and makes him go back to the van. Well, a few minutes later, the same thing happens again. The hitchhiker says, "Man, that was amazing. I've never seen anything like that." The driver says, "You want to try it?" Hitchhiker says, "Yeah, sure. Just don't hit me that hard." A husband is in his backyard and he's trying to fly a kite. He throws the kite up in the air and the wind catches it for a couple of seconds, then it comes crashing back down. Well, he tries it a couple of more times with no success. All the while, his wife is watching from the kitchen window and she's muttering to herself, "Men need to be told how to do everything." So she opens the window and yells out to her husband, "You need more tail." Well, the man turns with a confused look on his face and says, "Well, make up your mind. Last night when I tried to get some tail, you told me to go fly a kite." An old man was sitting in a park bench and he was crying his eyes out. Well, a young jogger comes by and asks him what's the matter. The old man says, "Well, I'm a multi-millionaire. I got a great big house, the fastest car in the world. I just married a beautiful blonde and she takes care of me every night, whether I like it or not." Well, the young jogger says, "Man, you got everything I ever dreamed for in life. What could be so wrong in your life that you're sitting here on a park bench crying?" Well, the old man looks at him and says, "I don't remember where I live." Bob and Jane were married for 25 years. When they first got married, Bob says, "Hey, listen, I'm gonna put a box under the bed, but you gotta promise never to look in it." In all their 25 years of marriage, Jane never looked. However, on the afternoon of their 25th anniversary, curiosity got the best of her, and she lifted the lid and peeked inside. Well, inside the box were 3 empty beer cans and $1,300 in cash. Well, she closed the box and put it back under the bed. Now she knew what was in there, but she was curious as to why. Well, that night they were out for a special anniversary dinner, and after dinner Jane could no longer contain her curiosity, and she confessed, I'm so sorry. For all these years I kept my promise. I never looked in the box under our bed, and today in temptation I looked. Now I know that there were cans in there, but why do you keep the cans in there? Well, Bob thought for a second and said, well, I guess after all these years you deserve to know the truth. Whenever I was unfaithful to you, I put an empty can in the box, just to remind myself to never do it again. Well, Jane was shocked and sad, and she said, I'm a little disappointed, but I guess after all those years away from home on the road, temptation does happen, and I guess 3 times isn't that bad considering 25 years of marriage. Well, they hugged and made their peace, and a little while later, Jane asked Bob, so why do you have all the money in the box? Well, Bob looked at her and said, well, whenever the box filled up with empties, I cashed 'em in. A guy and his date were parked on a back road some distance from town, doing what guys and girls do parked on a road. Abruptly, the girl stopped the guy dead in his tracks. She said, I really should have mentioned this earlier, but I actually charged $20. Well, the guy reluctantly paid her, and they did their thing, and after a while, the guy just sat there in the driver's seat, staring out the window. The girl looked at him and said, why aren't we going anywhere? Well, I probably should have mentioned this before, he said, but I'm actually a taxi driver, and fare back to town's $25. There was a couple celebrating their golden wedding anniversary. Their wedding had long been known around town, and on this very special occasion, a local newspaper reporter paid them a visit. He asked them the secret to their long and happy marriage. Well, said the husband, it all goes way back to our honeymoon. You see, we visited the Grand Canyon, and we took a trip down to the bottom of the canyon by pack mule. Well, it hadn't gone too far along when my wife's mule stumbled a little bit. Well, she quietly said to the mule, that's once. We proceeded a little further, and the mule stumbled again. My wife quietly said, that's twice. You know, that mule hadn't gone a half-mile further when it stumbled for a third time. My wife got off the mule and bang! Took that mule out. Well, when I turned to my wife and protested, she turned to me and said, that's once. So we've been, happy ever since. Which one of these jokes is your favorite? Leave me a comment down below. Thanks!